Gigit, and I've been practicing Social Security, Disability, and SSI law for about a little over 11 years at this point. So this first slide is just going over the types of programs that exist. The needs-based public benefits are going to be SSI and Medicaid. There's also expanded Medicaid programs, or you'll hear the word Medicaid buy-in programs. Entitlement public benefits, that's going to be Social Security Disability, which is what that SSDI stands for, and Medicare. And then there are some other benefit programs out there, Section 8 and Veterans Benefits. We're not going to discuss those today, but just know those are out there and it's something you can look into in your individual states. All right, so let's start with SSI. So first of all, what is it? SSI stands for Supplemental Security Income. So it's to supplement income for people who are disabled, blind, or 65 and older. And it's a cash monthly benefit you get. So right now it's $7.94 for an individual. We do get little increases each year. They call them cost of living adjustments. Now, some states will give an extra supplement. So for example, California, if you live there, you'll get an additional $160.72. Here in Texas, we don't do that. So my clients can only get up to the $7.94. And again, that is the maximum payment. A lot of people, if they didn't do the correct planning, aren't getting that amount. And we're going to go over that a little bit. So the next few slides are going to discuss how you qualify for SSI. There's first one is just some preliminary type issues. So you have to be a citizen or a lawful resident. You can't be a fugitive felon. You can't be in prison or violating parole. You also have to be in the United States for all the time. If you're gone for more than a month, they will kick you off. Or if you've been gone longer than a month, you won't be able to qualify when you first apply. So if you have family that lives in a different country, just be aware, you know, if you're going to go have medical treatment somewhere else, that's something that could affect you or your child. Also, if there's a possibility that the disabled person qualifies for Social Security Disability, they must apply for that first before applying for SSI. Since this is the needs-based program, you have to exhaust all your other options. And if you're not a citizen or a lawful resident, if you're an alien, there's only very few categories that would be able to apply for SSI. All right, so when you talk about SSI, there's 3 additional things we're going to look at. First, you have to meet their definition of disabled, which we'll go over. And if you pass that, then they'll look at and see if you pass their resource test. And then if you pass that, then they look at your income to decide how much benefit you actually can get. So there's 3 different tests we're going to go through. The first one is proving you're disabled. These are long definitions. I'm just going to kind of summarize them. The first one is what disability means for an adult. So 18 and up, essentially you have to prove they're not capable of working on a full-time basis. And for a disabled child, you have to prove that they have severe functional limitations, either mentally or physically because of their medical condition. A lot of times this is what people have to fight for depending on how disabled. If you have like a borderline high functioning special needs child, it may be a little bit more difficult. Okay, so let's say yes, Social Security comes and says we agree your child is disabled. Now let's look at your resources. So for an individual, the limit is $2,000. If you're married, you get $3,000 as your limit. And how they do this is month by month. So even once your child is on benefits, they're still going to look at this, and it's a snapshot, meaning the first day of the month, they take a picture, and that determines if you're eligible for the entire month. So let's say you're on benefits, and August 1st, your child has $2,030 in their account. And the next day, though, they spend $1,000 of that on bills. It doesn't matter, because when they took the picture, the child was over the limit, and so therefore they will be ineligible for the entire month. Okay, so good news, there are some assets that are exempt that don't count towards that $2,000 limit. So first one is, your principal residence. So they have to live in the home. And the reason why I say that is I've had clients where this disabled person was living on their own with a caretaker. Something happens to the caretaker and they move in with their parents. So they only have one home, but they're not living in it. That is no longer an exempt asset. So they have to be living in the house for it to be exempt. They also get one exempt automobile. And if it's like a family dynamic, each adult gets an automobile. Some other exempt assets would be the household items, personal effects, musical instruments, burial insurance, irrevocable burial trusts, burial plots, life insurance. Now, life insurance, if it's a whole life policy, it needs to be $1,500 or less. Term can be as much as you want because there's no money you can take out from that. And then, of course, anything that's in the trust that Carly discussed earlier. All right, so let's say you met the first two tests. Then it comes down to income. And so remember in the beginning, I said that the numbers that I listed were the maximum amount you could get. So they're going to go through 4 types of income to deduct anything that you're receiving. So the first kind of income we're going to go over is unearned income. That would be things like gifts, payments, alimony. I see this a lot with child support. So let's say you have an 18-year-old who's disabled. And so now, even though they're 18, they're still getting child support from a divorced spouse. That money would be unearned income. And so what they do is you get the first $20 for free, but then after that, dollar for dollar, they're going to reduce the SSI benefit by that amount. So for example, if they get $200 a month in child support, $180 would be deducted from that maximum amount that we discussed in the beginning. Then the second kind of income they're going to look at is earned income. That's going to be, employment, wages, things where you're doing something to earn the money. This one they're a little bit more flexible with. So the first $65 are free, and then they divide it in half. So you would take the $200, let's say if they had that in self-employment, they would give you the first $65 for free, and then you divide it in half. And so I think it's like $67 or in some cents that would be reduced from the SSI benefit. Then the other two, and these are the two that normally really get people. So in-kind support and maintenance is actual receipt of food, clothing, or shelter. What this really means is if you have an adult child living with you who's disabled and you're not making them pay rent, they're going to reduce that benefit. And they can reduce it up to a third of the amount. So right now that'd be $264.66 a month. They would reduce the SSI benefit by if your child is not paying rent. So what I always recommend my clients to do is to do a lease agreement. You could do it for $250, $300, whatever you think, but actually write it all out and saying that this is how much, my child is paying me every month in rent. And you need to make sure they're actually paying it. So every month, write, a check for the rent. Now, what you do with the money when you receive it is up to you. So if you're taking that money and then taking your child out to eat, whatever, but you need to make sure that they're paying the rent, or else that's a pretty big reduction. A third to lose. The other big one is deemed income, and we're going to go over that a little bit more in the next slide, but this is a big one that stops most children from being able to get SSI benefits until they're 18. So what deeming means is if someone is responsible for taking care of someone, their income is deemed to them. So for minor children, any parents, including step parents who live in the home, all of their income and assets count towards the child. So even if you have a step parent who's not maybe contributing to the child, it does not matter. Their income is automatically deemed to the child. Another big one is if someone's married, the spouse's income and assets are always given to the other spouse. So that's why I said most of the time, a child will not receive SSI until they turn 18. Okay, so what happens if you go through all of this and you finally get your child on, and then they get, the $20,000 from his mother or whoever? The big thing is, which I know Carly touched on this, don't just turn around and give it away. Social Security will find out, they get access to the bank accounts, they follow IRS and see what all's filed. And what they will do is they can cut off the benefit for up to 36 months if you do that. So the big thing is, if you're over the asset limit, either before or during while you're getting benefits, contact an attorney, because you can see it can have really bad consequences if you gift it away. That does not solve the problem. Another way I've seen this happen is if someone owns, let's say, that extra home that I was saying, like, let's say the person moves in with you, so they are no longer living in the home. You can't just sell the home for $10 and say, no, look, we sold it. They will actually look at the transaction. They'll want the contract, and anything that you sold it under fair market value will be considered giving it away, gifting it away. So you'll have the same consequence. Okay, So when I'm talking about Medicaid on this slide, I'm talking about the Medicaid you get when you qualify for SSI. So SSI and Medicaid run hand in hand. There's three different categories of states on how they do it. So the easiest states are the 1634 states. And what these are is, as long as someone is receiving even $1 of SSI, they automatically get Medicaid. So they don't have to put in an extra application. There's no extra requirements. It's just automatic. SSI criteria states everyone who gets SSI receives Medicaid, but they make you go and do a separate application for Medicaid. So it's essentially just a second step. And then the last one, the 209B states, for them, SSI does not automatically mean Medicaid. And so some of those states will have even more restrictions for Medicaid than they do for SSI. So it is a completely separate process. And this is just for your benefit. You can look at this and see which state you are to see, what requirements you may have. Okay, so now let's turn to Social Security disability insurance. And what that is, it's a disability program, but it's not based on income or assets. It's based on your work history. So you could be a billionaire, but if you've worked long enough and you're disabled, you can apply for this program. So the basic criteria is, if you're 31 and up, you're going to need 40 work credits, 20 of those being in the last 10 years. If you're under 31, you need less credits. And so some very young people will qualify. And how you earn credits is through working. You can get 4 credits a year. And this amount always, kind of goes up and down. But right now it's $1,470 of wages, you get 1 credit. So as you're paying into the system, that's how you qualify for this. Now, a big difference with this is when you get Social Security disability, you get Medicare instead of Medicaid. You do not have to apply for it. It is automatic, but there's a waiting period. So you don't get Medicare until you've been entitled to Social Security disability for 2 years. Now, there is a way that someone can get Social Security disability without working, and that's called an adult disabled child benefit. And what that is the person has to be 18 years or older. We have to be able to prove they are disabled before the age of 22. And you need one parent that either receives Social Security benefits or has passed away. And then the child can actually draw off of that person who's receiving the benefits or who has passed away. They can take off of their Social Security. So it's a great program. It has a weird restriction. There's still no income or assets, but the person cannot be married. So the only way an adult disabled child can receive this benefit and be married is if they're actually married to another adult disabled child. Also, they could not have worked more than 3 months. I mean, this would be a situation where they haven't really worked. Okay, and just kind of some basic Medicare information. There are the 3 parts. Part A is hospital insurance. So if you go to the ER or inpatient. Part B is your normal medical insurance, like when you go to the doctor, like your primary care. And then Part D is the prescription drugs. Okay, so that's the programs. Let's talk about how you actually apply for these programs. So they're almost identical the way the process works. The only difference is the actual application itself. So SSI is a paper application. It has not been updated to be electronic, and Social Security does not go make these applications easy for people to get. So you'll have to either call Social Security and set up an appointment and do it with them, or you could contact an attorney. We have the applications and we could complete them and submit them for you. Social Security disability can actually be done online. So you'll see that I have it there, the ssa.gov. So you can still, if you don't feel comfortable doing that, you could still contact your local Social Security office and they will help you through it. Or of course you could hire an attorney. And when you're talking about hiring an attorney for this process, it is important to know that Social Security attorneys work only on contingency fee, meaning none of us charge unless we get someone on benefits, and we're regulated by Social Security. So don't be scared to call an attorney and talk to them about this, because it shouldn't cost you anything at all upfront. All right, so let's say you put in the application. I would say it's normally about a 5-month process before you get your first decision back. During that time period, they will have requested medical records, they will send additional forms they want completed, and they may actually send your child for a mental or physical exam or both. If they were to be denied, you would definitely want to appeal. You have 60 days. and that's called a reconsideration. About 63% of applications are denied, and they'll have to go through that process. If you were denied again, then you would go see the judge, and you'll see there I have 87% of reconsiderations are denied. And then if you were denied at the hearing, you'd want to go to the appeals council. And if you were denied again, you can actually file a lawsuit against Social Security. I don't expect the majority for y'all to have to go through this long process, but I want you to understand that if you do fall into these statistics where you're being denied, don't get discouraged. Keep fighting, because they deny really good cases sometimes, and you should contact an attorney and have them and fight it for you.
Okay, so putting it all together. First of all, what are next steps? Because I know sometimes this can feel overwhelming. Just so you all know, Gigit and I have been doing this for a long time. We research it constantly. We still have to look things up. So don't feel like, oh my gosh, I can't get a grasp on this, because even attorneys have to constantly research these laws. They're ever changing, and different situations apply to different family members and different people. So, our biggest thing is just don't wait. Look into doing this now. If you have questions, ask us. And as Gigit mentioned, hiring an attorney, a Social Security attorney, if your child is, 18 or will soon be, or an adult now, and you're having problems with that, contact us. It costs you nothing to talk to Gigit. But in general, we would say that in order to hire an attorney to create the third party special need trust, or even a first party special need trust if you need it, is between $1,000 and $5,000. Again, it all depends on what all you're asking to be created. But just know that families and friends do want to help. And that there's a good way to have them help is to maybe set up an Able account, or even a GoFundMe for now. So definitely try to start saving in order for you to start planning. Another good thing you can do, and that's a little less expensive, is to create a will. You can create the third party special needs trust within the will. So sometimes that's a less expensive option in order to get that supplemental needs trust created. It won't be available now for you to start contributing funds, but it is available upon the parent or the caregiver's death. So it will still go to your child and protect your child from losing any public benefits. Able account is a good option too. And definitely know that if you don't plan anything, you have a first party special need trust as a backup plan. Okay, now we have about 15 minutes. So we want to go through some hypos. And this might help you all. It kind of puts it into a more real life perspective. So if you fall into one of these family categories, then this might help. So we're just going to go over those now.
Okay, so hypothetical one, the Smith family. So the Smith family is a single mom, and she can only work part-time because she needs to be at home to take care of her disabled minor child. The family does not have any assets outside of their home or one vehicle. So what's the best plan for the Smith family? So since the family is under the income and asset limits, they should go ahead and apply for childhood SSI benefits. Also, Ms. Smith should be prepared that when the child turns 18, Social Security re-looks to determine if the child is disabled under the adult rules. Remember, there's two definitions. So just if you have a child on SSI, you're going to just be prepared for that, because sometimes it really upsets people when it happens because they weren't planning for it. So when should they contact an attorney? I would say if the child's application is denied, or if at 18 Social Security finds that the child is no longer disabled. And that's a big one, because if you get that letter, you only have 10 days to appeal to say, I want to keep the benefits going while I fight this. And for a lot of people, that's major, because if you lose SSI, you're losing Medicaid too. So definitely call someone right away if that happens. And then also, if there's someone else who's wanting to gift or give something to the child, you want to call to do that, those trusts that Carly talked about. Okay, hypothetical two, the Lopez family. So in this situation, both parents work full time. They built up healthy retirement and savings accounts, and they have a disabled minor child. What should they do? Well, the child will not qualify for SSI, because remember, all that income and assets is going to be deemed to the child. But when the child turns 18, they should definitely apply for SSI. They should also look into Medicaid waiver or buy-in programs so that maybe they can get some help with medical care until then. And as far as when they should contact an attorney, I would say now for the estate planning part, because they need to start planning, because if something were to happen to them and the child inherits upon their 18th birthday, all this account and money they built up, the child will never get SSI or Medicaid unless they do that first party, which then is all going to have to go back to Medicaid. And then, of course, when they apply at 18, if the child is denied, you want to contact an attorney. Okay, hypothetical 3. In this one, Mr. and Mrs. Jones both work full time. They have more than one home, and they have a disabled child who is 18. What should they do? Well, here they should go ahead and apply for SSI, because remember, even if the child is living in the home at 18, that income and assets are no longer deemed to them. They need to ensure that once the child is getting SSI, that they keep the bank account under the $2,000 limit. Sometimes I see families are scared to use the money that they're getting from SSI because they feel like they need to save it, but you can't do that. So have the child use that SSI money they're getting. And then it would be the same things when to contact an attorney if that SS application is denied, or now if the parents do not have an estate plan or trust, because they need to make sure that child does not inherit 2 homes, because that would kick them off of benefits. And then the 4th hypothetical, in this one, Mr. Brown recently passed away. Mrs. Brown works full time. She has an unmarried 19-year-old disabled child on SSI. So what's the best plan for this family? She should contact Social Security and get them switched to that adult disabled child program, which is also the childhood disability beneficiary program, because now the child can draw off of the father's Social Security, and most likely it will be more money, and it would give them access to Medicare as well. And as far as when they should contact an attorney, if for some reason the Social Security denies the adult disabled child benefit, that shouldn't happen, but I randomly will get cases where they're on SSI, but they're telling them they're not disabled for the other program. And so sometimes we have to fight with them a little bit on that. And then Mrs. Brown should definitely have her estate plan re-looked at, because now her husband's passed away. And so it probably needs to change a little bit. And then our last hypothetical, the Johnson family. And this one, they own a business. And so they've actually been employing their disabled child for 5 years. But now they're going to sell the business, and the child is no longer going to be employed. So what should they do? On this one, they should actually apply for Social Security disability for the child once they're no longer employed, and SSI, because sometimes you'll get both programs. So if your Social Security disability benefit is under the SSI amount, SSI will come in and kick to at least get them to that $790. And so when should they contact an attorney? Same thing, if either program is denied. And also, if the parents don't have an estate plan or trust for the child, they need to ensure that the child will not inherit over the limit. Even, let's just say, the Social Security disability is all they're going to get because it's a big enough benefit. In the future, the child may need Medicaid for like a long-term care facility. So you still want to be planning, even though they're on Social Security disability.